As you work through the rest of the problems on your own, I want to kind of get you started on these. So first of all, make sure that you read this information in these two boxes. So there's going to be some questions about modeling and aligning your data, and you're not going to know how to answer those questions if you do not read this information. And in general, you need to be really careful that you read very carefully their instructions in terms of what they tell you to use for X and what they tell you to use for Y. All right, so I'm going to get you started here on number 1. So this is saying to use the graphing calculator to graph this equation, y equals 50x plus 500 all over x. And it says to adjust the viewing window so that the graph is complete and detailed without too much blank area on the graph, and then list what window you ended up choosing. So we're kind of switching modes because we were just doing regression and now we're going back to graphing an equation. So the first thing I want to do, since I'm no longer doing a scatter plot, is I want to turn that feature off. So I'm going to need to go back into stat plot. So second and y equals. And then right now this plot is on and I'm not doing a scatter plot right now, so I want to turn that off. So while that's highlighted, hit enter. And then I'm going to arrow over until off is blinking. And then I'll hit enter and that will toggle it into the off position. All right, so that will turn that off. And then I want to go ahead and put my equation in. So I'm going to go to y equals to enter my equation. I'm going to clear out the one from the last problem. And then if you have a newer model calculator, you should actually be able to put this equation in just like it looks, where it actually looks like a fraction. There's several ways to get to the fraction option, but the way I always remember is alpha y equals. So if you do the alpha button and then y equals, the very first option there will let you actually enter things in to where they look like a fraction. So this looks a lot better. You can actually just type in the 50x plus 500 and then arrow down to the denominator and put in another x there. All right, so that's going to be my equation. And then I can hit graph right now, but again, I'm on the window that I used for the last problem, right? So what would be a good thing to do is typically you would start with the standard viewing window. So I'm going to go back to window, and yeah, this should be, at least to start with, I would just start with an x min of -10, an x max of +10, and a y min of -10, and a y max of +10. However, there's a shortcut for that too. So actually, if you go to Zoom and you choose Z standard, that goes right back to the standard -10 to 10, -10 to 10 viewing window. All right, so I'm getting a graph here. I'm seeing a graph. I'm definitely not seeing a lot of this graph. So it's just on the corner here, and I'm not getting a very good picture. So this is what you want to do, is you want to kind of play around with your window and play with it and try different things until you get a better view of your graph. So you can see all the important parts of your graph, and then there's also not too much blank space on your graph. So how do you do this? I mean, you really could just go to window and just try stuff. A good thing to try though, at least to start out, would be maybe just to zoom out to start with, and then you can start narrowing it from there. So I'm going to choose zoom, and then I'm going to arrow to the option for zoom out and hit enter. And I have a lot of people that think that their zoom out isn't working. Guys, you have to hit enter again. So until you hit enter a second time, it's not actually going to zoom out. So that's a much better view. And so, is this good enough? Well, I've got a lot of blank space over on the right side. And honestly, I'm not even sure if we're seeing everything. It wouldn't hurt to like just zoom out a few times until you really are confident that you've got everything. So I'm going to zoom out and then hit enter again. Oh, wow, there's this whole other part of my graph that I wasn't even seeing before. So you can see just how important it is that you actually explore some possible windows if you really want to see what's going on in your graph. When we first started out, we were just seeing like just this tiny little part of the graph here. There's a lot more going on here. I'm noticing there's kind of a lot of blank space over here on the left. Like I probably don't need to see quite all of this. And same thing on the right. I've just got like, I know what it's doing here. I don't necessarily need to see all of this. So, you can decide, as long as you can see all parts, you're good. But if you decide that, hey, maybe I want to bring that in a little bit. So maybe I'll do a little bit bigger X min, a little bit smaller X max. and just see what that does, right? Just play around with this. Yeah, that looks a little bit better. There's less blank space on there, right? You might decide you want to see a little bit more of what's going on up here. So maybe you could adjust your Y max. So, I mean, you just try stuff, just pick a number, right? And see how it looks. And if you don't like it, change it again and just play around with it. So there's not one correct answer here in terms of what you're going to write down on number one. This is just, what window that did you come up with that showed you all parts of the graph and gave you a good view of it.